Today on Unscripted, we discuss the debate on backing tracks. So there's no right or wrong answer to this. Backing tracks are backing tracks. And I believe there's a slippery slope when it comes to, do you consider a sample a backing track? What needs to be in a backing track? Like, all this stuff has to be thought up of. And, that's not even discussing, how much it costs to not have to have a backing track. Now, you look at a lot of pop stars, and when they're using backing tracks, a lot of the time they're using background vocals. Or some of them, say the Ashley Simpson debacle from SNL a couple of years back, they actually use their actual voice, the lead vocal, in a backing track. Some people don't like the backing tracks that, say, bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers used in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. And if you take a look up for the news and stuff, you can see that they even said, like, well, we'd have to use backing tracks. It's impossible because of the time, the preparation, and how it would sound in this massive, huge stadium that they're literally wheeling the band out and then wheeling them back out so they can have the football game. I am okay with backing tracks to a certain extent. I'm a rock guy. I'm a rock and roll guy. So I'm a huge fan of bands actually playing their music. I'm cool with having a small piano part here, or a string part here, or maybe having a whole intro or whole portions that are backing tracks, and then it's just more of a performance aspect of it. But when I see bands go, well, we have 3 guitar parts, they're all backing tracks, and we have all this piano. It's a piano-based band, and they have just major parts on piano being played. That is a little, I don't want to say, I'm going to say it's cheating to me. I'm going to go see a rock band who promises me that they play their own instruments, and then they're not doing it. To me, that's lying and cheating. And stealing, because, you're taking my money, and I expected one thing, and I'm getting something completely different. When it comes to hip-hop artists, we're used to hip-hop artists, hip-hop is still a new genre compared to, say, blues and rock and roll. So hip-hop, like, we were just so used to in the 80s and the 90s, everyone just using DJs and having pre-recorded tracks, and then they rap over those tracks, and they have a DJ controlling all that stuff. But, bands like Rage Against the Machine, it's a whole backing band, and then they have Zach De La Rocha, who's actually rapping over it. That changed things. Beastie Boys, I mean, they played their own instruments, and they also rap. They did both. And then later on, you have bands like, you have rappers like Jay-Z, LL Cool J, Busta Rhymes, Eminem. They've all gone out on tour with backing bands. They're still using some backing tracks, and they're still using samples and stuff like that, but they're also using full bands. And I think that's really cool, because that's just going to bring more of a show to hip-hop. So, because when you're doing something more freeing like that, you're not stuck to a tape. There's a famous story years ago that The Who were playing a show, and they were playing their famous song Baba O'Reilly, Teenage Wasteland, for people that aren't huge Who fans. And there's this backing track from a synthesizer that Pete Townsend created. And it's going, and it's going, and it's going, and then it's tape, and it starts skipping, and skipping, and skipping, and distorting, and then they had to rethink how to do things, because no one could just sit there and just twiddle on keys that entire time. It's a little annoying. But if you look at, like, the Pearl Jam version, I believe it's Mike McCready who actually plays that part on a guitar, which is really cool live if you ever get to see it. So I don't want to go crazy in depth and stuff, but when I'm seeing if I see a pop star, like, I've seen NSYNC live, and they have backing tracks, but the band did sing. Those were their parts, and you could tell it was their parts. If I'm gonna go see a pop star, a pop group, whatever, I expect to at least have the lead vocals there, live. I don't want that recorded or pre-recorded. Bands like Nine Inch Nails, Angels and Airwaves, hell, even Avenged Sevenfold, they use some backing tracks. Since the Rev Pass, they still use his vocals on a couple of songs because he's the one who sang, and it's more of a paying homage or a respect thing. A lot of bands use click tracks already because they want to stay in a complete perfect time. And if they're going to do that, then that gives them a chance to use backing tracks because they just throw them on with the click track. And I'll leave it off with this as a musician who has used backing tracks in the past. It costs a lot of money to bring people out on the road. Now, say you're in a band with 4 people. Well, that's 4 mouths to feed. And you guys are the initial band. So you understand, hey, we're eating ramen every night. And we're sleeping in the van every night. But when you start trying to hire people to come in to the fold just to be a touring musician, not to be part of the band, but just to tour and make the sound bigger, well, you have to first off pay them. Second off, they may not agree to sleep in a van, or they may not agree to eat just ramen every night. And those are the things that you really have to take into account. So you want, extra guitar parts or extra piano parts or something like that, something to make everything sound more full. Well, that does cost money. And that's where I completely understand having certain backing tracks. But I don't like to see a band that doesn't have a bassist on stage, but I'm hearing the bass throughout the PA, unless there's something huge like a bassist had quit and they had this major tour or something like that lined up. But those are my thoughts on the backing tracks. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It's almost like everything. I think in moderation it works, but you don't want to go too insane one way or the other. You got to be malleable too. You may create this amazing part in the studio, this amazing song, and you're gonna have to use backing tracks, or it's not gonna sound good or full enough when you're playing it live. So what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Thumbs up the video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. And go to the social media links that I have down below too. I love posting little questionnaires, opinions, and you also get to see pictures of my puppy and vinyl stuff. So, rock on.